Hello, War of the Ring players. It's B. Hilly back with another game from my trip through the 2025 War of the Ring World Tournament. This is from the round of 64, which I played against Laker. This game was from late March, so over a month ago at this point, so I don't remember much about it. So you'll forgive me if I have a similar experience to what I had casting the round of 128 games, where I am surprised by some of my own moves and maybe questioning some of my prior decision making. Thank you to Laker, and again, thank you to Size 16s from the round of 128 for being cool with me doing these casts. I appreciate when opponents are willing to have their games commented on by somebody else. Uh, I know that the community is generally fine with it, but I appreciate the sentiment of people wanting more content out there, and so being willing to for it to be their games that are part of that content. So thank you again to my opponents. So let's jump into this game. I started as Shadow. I've got Shadows on the Misty Mountain and Isildur's Bane. Two cards I'm very happy to start the game with. Orcs Multiplying again is my favorite strategy card to start with to put pressure on Woodland Realm, but Shadows on the Misty Mountains is a close, very close second. Although it does mean that you're sort of definitely going for Lorien. I think if you get Shadows on the Misty Mountains, maybe turn 4 or something, especially if you get it with Rage of the Dunlendings, that can be used to attack Rivendell. But if you've got Shadows on the Misty Mountains turn 1, it almost certainly means you're going for Lorien. We'll see if that's what I end up doing. Let's jump in. Oh, wow. Okay, so I start by rolling 3 eyes, and my opponent starts by rolling 1 movement. Honestly, I would much rather have the free people position with these dice. You don't really want to be moving to. I guess you do want to kill Gandalf, but do you really want to be moving 2 or 3 times against 4 eyes? Not necessarily. And 3H dice is beautiful. And, Shadow only has 1 muster, so I can't even get additional dice. And I say might be a long one. Yeah, I mean, this definitely just extended the game by at least 1 turn, since Free People is moving slowly and Shadow is moving basically not at all. All right, let's see what happens. They move, they get hit twice, draw 1, sure. And they don't take Gandalf there, which I think is right. I know that there are some people who argue that you should just kill Gandalf immediately in base. The first opportunity to, no matter what the tile is, if you can kill Gandalf, you should kill Gandalf. I think in a situation like this, where Shadow isn't getting a minion, I probably wouldn't kill Gandalf. I think I agree with that choice. And you know that you've got these 3H dice, so you're gonna be able to set up some good defenses. At least it would appear. All right, let's see what I do. All right, I move Isengard to war. Sure, I'm given that I don't have a ton of attacks. There's no real pressure to get Sauron to war. Though if I only roll 1 muster next turn, that'll be a bit of a bummer. But Shadows is playable without Sauron being at war. So I assume that either I just play it or I draw a card. But okay, so they go ahead and do standard moves. Western Net, Old Forest Road. I would consider just using all 3 of these to just muster the elves straight to war. That may have been what I did with those 3H dice in my opponent's position. I know that these moves are pretty standard when you have H dice. I think if you had 1 H dice and like 1 other muster, maybe do this and then muster the elves or something. But I think with 3 H dice, I would just and no risk of giving your opponent the Witch King. Indeed, probably not super likely to give your opponent the Witch King, only 50-50 on turn 2 anyway, even if you put the elves straight to war. Because you know that, I mean, is Shadow going to roll 3 musters next turn? It could happen, but they've got to do that on 6 dice, and only 2 faces have musters on them. So you expect Shadow to have 2 musters next turn, and 2 musters doesn't get you 2 additional dice next turn if you're Shadow. So yeah, I'd probably just muster the elves straight to war. Okay, so I do go ahead and play Shadows. Fine. Okay, sure. I start shuffling armies, and they do move the elves twice. That makes sense. I guess that gives them a little more flexibility next turn. Though if you only roll 1 if you only roll one muster, you're going to be pretty sad because that means Lorien still gets put under siege without getting a mustering in it. But let's see what happens. I allocate one because I have to. Okay, this is a pretty perfect roll. Gives me the flexibility of, depending on what my opponent rolls, let's see what it is. Yeah, so just the one muster. So this is why I think that those H dice should have just been used on the elves. Because with that one muster, now I don't feel pressure to go put Lorien. I can use one of those H dice to bring in the Witch King, for example, and just maybe put Lorien under siege with the army in Dimbraldale to put them to war, and then get the Witch King. Maybe that's what I do. And then rather than deal with a mustered up Lorien, it's slightly inefficient, but I mean a slightly inefficient half move is better than my opponent putting an additional 2 hit points in Lorien. Curious to see what I do here. So I put Sauron straight to war, and I start walking. Oh, I guess I'm leaving myself flexibility. I'm walking towards them, but I can always just use that sea dice to just attack straight from Dimbraldale if they muster down. But if they do muster down, then like what are they threatening? That they're going to use the will to muster in Lorien, I guess. I mean, I don't have a minion on the board yet, so maybe that's a reasonable use of that will, but you want to be moving as much as possible against one eye. So I shut. Okay, let's see what happens. They move. I miss. I keep moving. Okay, so I'm not going to try for 2 minions this turn. I think that's fine. My opponent moves again. I miss. Draw a card. Wow. Day Without Dawn is actually a great card to pull here. I mean, Gandalf is still alive. Maybe this is me contradicting something of what I said in the first turn. That is one of the risks of leaving Gandalf in the Fellowship, and not killing him immediately. Is your opponent can end up with Day Without Dawn in hand, and maybe you do find a time to kill Gandalf, but you lose your will that you were going to bring back Gandalf the White with. Okay, so my opponent musters. Yeah, Rohan to war. Yeah, that's reasonable. I might have done north, or just moved again, right? Before that. Okay, so I go ahead and get an additional dice. That's great. They move, draw an eye. They're out in Dimraldale, and they don't take. Okay, so I think this is a mistake. I would probably have taken Gandalf there. I know it's not super efficient. You don't want to be losing Gandalf to a 1, but you have moved 4, right? And like now you're through Moria safely. I would probably have lost Gandalf there, especially because Saruman is now in play. Well, let's see what happens. They get a 2. Okay, fine. That worked out for them. And I attack Lorien and leave. Okay. I leave some rerolls behind. Sure. Is this maybe yeah? I mean, I guess I am holding Isildur's Bane and Candles, and they just lost Gandalf to a 2, which is pretty efficient. But they that's 3 tiles out in 4 steps, and I'm holding Candles and Isildur. So maybe I'm contemplating a corruption game here. That's the only reason I would leave those. I mean, yeah. Maybe I'm contemplating a corruption game. All right. Yeah, this is another beautiful roll for me. Exactly what I would have wanted, because you know that if they roll a will, they're going to be bringing in Gandalf. I can use those attacks that I have to put pressure on Woodland Realm. So you want to be using, they're going to be in a position of wanting to use that H die to muster in Woodland Realm rather than using it to hide. So, their options are hide with a C and move once, or hide with the H and try to move twice, but forego a muster in Woodland Realm. So this is really the crux of a shadow game, right? Is like, how do you cross pressure dice? I'm lucky to have rolled as many attacks as I did here, but ultimately, like, cross pressuring dice, and making the free people make hard choices, especially with their rings if you can, but with their dice in general, is what good shadow play looks like. Okay, let's see what I actually do, if I actually do cross pressure their dice. So I go ahead and get Gandalf immediately. I get the Witch King. Yeah. That seems good. And I don't. Yeah. Okay, so if I move up to Woodland Realm, I'm forcing them to decide about using that H dice. Um, but I think what I probably see here is uh, I have enough attacks to I don't have enough attacks to get to Dol Amroth. So maybe I'm just trying to draw out that H dice to then play a new Powers Rising and then rush Helm's Deep. That, mm, yeah, that may be exactly what I'm doing. Let's see what happens here. Oh, way smarter. Wow. Okay, so what I was doing was I was attempting to draw out that H dice so that I could go after Rivendell. That's pretty cool. That's a cool play. I totally did not see it uh, as I was watching the game back, but that's pretty cool. Because elves are at war, so being able to put pressure on Rivendell uh, when them not being able to muster in it is great. It's not exact, and then actually pulling Shadow Lengthens is also really nice. In case I need to reinforce in Rivendell. All right, so they declare out from under the rerolls. Um, Boy, that's a tough roll for them. I got another incredible roll, and they only got one movement against my one eye. That's frustrating if you're free people. Ah, they had Kindred. Okay, that that makes Rivendell not takeable with the army that I have parked on top of it. I go ahead and attack Osgiliath because they. I don't think that there was necessarily. All right, let's talk about this. There wasn't a rush to make that play that they just made in Rivendell. Um, I don't have any leadership up there, and I don't have any sea dice or Palantirs. So even if I have one of the Nazgul attack cards to immediately put pressure on Rivendell, like I can't play it. So there is no rush to do that, and I think a muster. I'm taking advantage of the fact that um, Gondor had not yet been mustered down. So there's an extra unit in Minas Tirith um, from moving back from Osgiliath, but if I attack Osgiliath now, there's no chance of them mustering into Minas Tirith. Uh, that being said, like if they muster into Minas Tirith, I have enough attacks to just blitz Dol Amroth. So let's see what I do. I attack. I don't play a card. Why don't I cycle a card here? I guess I like all of them. One with Sour and Toil. Yeah, they still have like a basically full fellowship. So I'm probably contemplating playing that. If I had a Palantir this turn, I probably would have played it. Candles I want to play. The red tile I'm going to want to put in. And Isildur. I'm maybe still hedging against the idea of a corruption game. Sure. All right, so they play Confusion. Yeah. Confusion is such a polarizing card. Like, there are games where I've attacked Osgiliath there and rolled 4 ones, and my army has just evaporated to one guy in a Confusion card. But, most often it just does nothing, or maybe one hit. All right, so my opponent moves. They're safe. And I start bringing the Southronds and Easterlings to war with those musters that I have. That makes sense. Interesting. So I am planning on. Okay, so that's probably a mistake right there, using that muster to bring Rohan down. I would just muster into Woodland Realm with that one, or hold it and play use the Palantir for something, because now I have enough attacks to get to Dol Amroth, or I have enough attacks to get to Woodland Realm, and that muster die that was just spent, if it had been held, you would have forced me to commit, and you'd use the Palantir, you would have forced me to commit to going one direction or another. With those 3 attacks, right? Like grouping up in Vale of Karnan and then pushing towards Woodland Realm through Dale, or pushing through Peligir to Dol Amroth. Now, if I decide to do either of those things, you only get, like, my opponent only gets 1 muster in Woodland Realm or 1 muster in Dol Amroth. Yeah, and so I end up going for. They play File, sure. So, yeah, that File should have been played before that muster was used on Rohan. Because now I just go straight through Dale. I don't get a hit. And they retreat to Erebor. I think I probably would have retreated into Woodland Realm there. knowing that you're going to muster. I'm not going to leave Woodland Realm. My goal here is to cover up Woodland Realm for sure. Like, I'm not going to attack Erebor. And a 2 regulars, 2 elites, and 2 leadership army in Woodland Realm is actually too much for that Dale army to take. But without the additional regular and leader in Woodland Realm, the army that I have up there might already be big enough. I muster into Woodland Realm. Yeah, so there's a version of this turn where Woodland Realm ends with a 2/3/2 in it, and is just completely unassailable with the army that's up, by the army that's up there. If sequencing had been done a little differently. Okay, so I draw Cruel Weather. Obviously, very happy to see that. I mean, a perfect time to draw it. If my opponent rolls 4 sea dice this turn or something, there's a chance that they could get to Mordor. So truly just a perfect time to pull that card. What do I discard? What do I discard? Do I discard Worm of Sauron Tile here? Do I just give up on the Corruption game? Cruel Weather, I'm probably thinking, buys me another turn. Problem is, my military is not great. Like, Lorien is the only stronghold I have under siege that is, a slam dunk. Rivendell can't take it. Woodland Realm, pretty tough. Let's see what I toss. What was that card that I just got rid of? Yeah, okay. So I do get rid of Worm of Siren Foil. Alright. I don't mind that many Palantirs this turn. I have a lot of cards I can play. Especially... Gosh. I'm sorry, Laker. That's just rude. You go ahead and roll. I just put the Southrons and Easterlings to war, and you have theoretically enough moves to get to Mordor. I only have 1 eye in the box, but of course, everybody can predict what's coming next. Day Without Dawn. And now my opponent has no dice. That's tough. I move over to Umbar. Yeah, so this is just a little bit of army shuffling, a little bit of dressing the lines here. I rarely do the upgrade in Orthanc, but I think that that's an appropriate time to do it. With the reinforcements from South Dunland coming down. Normally, if I recruit elites in Orthanc, I'm just recruiting an elite as opposed to doing the upgrade ability with voice. But given that Orthanc was already full, that's a great use of voice there. And so then I go after Eisen. I play a Desperate Battle. Opponent plays a Shield Wall, and I get 5 hits. Wow. Okay, my opponent gets 1 back. And I leave 4 guys behind. Yeah, that's pretty standard for... I think that's pretty standard for me, is to leave 4 hit points behind. Sometimes I'll do 5 if I don't need... If Helm's Deep is a little bit weaker. But in this case, that attack into Fords is going to put... Rohan to war. So I need the hit points, because I expect Helm's Deep to get a muster here. Yeah. So I put Helm's Deep under siege. I play a Isildur here. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm doing that because if my opponent is probably planning to use that sea dice to move again this turn, but if this is a reveal, which it is, now that sea has to be used to hide instead of move, and now it makes it far less likely that they get into Mordor next turn. Probably a mistake by my opponent to hold that sea dice instead of just moving, because that's what you're going to use it for. And the only thing that can happen is your circumstances get worse, like with that Isildur play happening. Because it would be way better to be revealed in... it would be way better to start next turn revealed in Eastern Emmenwheel, for example, than unrevealed in Eastern Brownlands. Even if my opponent if they only roll 2 moves next turn, they can't get into Mordor because I have Cruel Weather. Maybe they get revealed 3 times in a row, but it's now much less likely they get into Mordor next turn, compared to if they just use that sea dice and been 2 steps out. All right, so I move my Nazgul around. Yeah. Still Why do I think that getting rerolls is a good idea when I don't actually want to reveal them? I'm not sure. I guess I just didn't need the extra leadership, so I up in Woodland Realm, so that seemed like a good place to put it. Probably wishing I'd sent them now because I drew Dreadful Spells and I only have 4 Nazgul up there. Although Dreadful Spells would be great in either Rivendell or Woodland Realm right now. Maybe get a hit or two and make those more reasonable. Okay, so my opponent knows I don't have... They know I've played David Without Dawn, so those 2 wills are safe. Play Celeborn. Yeah, I've just been sort of... Maybe a mistake. I've been so focused on getting additional strongholds under siege, I've just left Lorien for several turns now. And given that Lorien is one of the few strongholds where 2 cards help it, and my opponent is, not quite halfway through their deck, I should expect that they would have seen one of them by now. And indeed they had. So, okay, so I go ahead and attack Woodland Realm, starting with Mumakil against a Daylight. Probably just seeing how much damage I can do up here before deciding what to do with Dreadful Spells. Like, you can always just get 4 hits, not against a Daylight, but, there are combats where you just end up rolling 4 hits or something, and then I would know that I don't need Dreadful Spells in Woodland Realm and can maybe use it in Rivendell. Probably just taking one combat crack here to see what happens. And I just roll 2 hits. My opponent rolls 2 back, so Mumakil doesn't trigger. But still, 2 hits against a Daylight is great. I'll take that all day, every day. So I stop and draw. I attack again. I assume I'm playing a Swarm of Bats here. Yeah. And I just get 4 hits on the reroll with the Swarm of Bats. That's what as I was saying, right? Sometimes you just get 4 hits. And there's nothing the free people can do about that. Wow. That is damn indeed, Laker. I'm sorry. That's not super fair. Okay, and Woodland Realm gets no hits back and just crumbles. So I'm probably feeling quite good about my position on the board right now. If my opponent were getting into Mordor this turn, I would feel less good about my position, but I know for a fact they are not. It is actually impossible for my opponent to get in this turn, because if they move and I don't reveal them, I'm just going to Cruel Weather them backwards. If they move and I do reveal them, they can hide with the H or the M, but then if they move a second time and they're revealed, they now don't have enough dice to get in. But if they move and aren't revealed, I can just Cruel Weather them back in and they can't use a ring to get into Mordor. So again, that decision to pass with the C die on turn 5 is having some rippling consequences here. Yeah. So I move everybody over to Rivendell, probably planning to play Dreadful Spells here. My opponent moves, I hit them, and it's a 0 reveal. Dreadful Spells on Rivendell, and I completely whiff. I mean, that's a little disappointing, but not. I can't really complain after how combat went in Woodland Realm, right? But 2 hits there would have been significant to putting me in a position to be able to take Rivendell with the army that is up there. My opponent hides. I attack Rivendell. Yeah, Devilry of Orthanc is a very... Maybe I was contemplating keeping that for Minas Tirith, since it does seem like Minas Tirith is going to be 2 of my points. At the moment, it's kind of looking like I'm planning on Helm's Deep, Lorien, Woodland Realm, and Rivendell? Did I really need to attack Rivendell here, right? Like, Minas Tirith is more takeable. Minas Tirith has the same hit points in it as Rivendell for free people, but I have 4 extra guys, plus 5 behind them. Why not just go for Minas Tirith here? Like, I could have just abandoned Rivendell, especially when the spells didn't hit. But I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to cycle this Devilry of Orthanc, but just playing it to make Minas Tirith easy to take also would have been good. All right, so my opponent gets one hit back. I stop and draw, and I draw another Devil of Orthic. Okay, so maybe this was correct. My opponent moves, and I miss them, but now, of course, they get Cruel Weathered backwards, so they are not getting in this turn. Emerhill's played, just in case it, as part of doing some of the cycling here, I ended up with Corsairs. Interesting. So I muster into Moria. I'm really doubling down on this Rivendell siege. Although I guess that unit in Moria could also potentially go to Lorien if I need a reinforcement there. It feels like I got to this point in the turn and just didn't really have a plan for that muster, which isn't great. But that's a reasonable thing to do with it if I didn't have a plan for it. I mean, that's an incredible draw. Fighting Urukai and Grond. When you have sieges like this that are a little sketchy, both at Helm's Deep and at Rivendell, like Grond and Fighting Urukai are a really good way to take those sieges and make them much higher likelihoods of success. Now, especially in Rivendell, it's pretty risky. The Witch King, those are the kinds of games where you play Grond up there, and then the 3 rounds of combat later, the Witch King is dead. Like that can pretty easily happen. But given that I've got 6 HP against 4 HP, Grond leading with a desperate battle, if I get 2 or 3 hits, they can't play a card, then essentially the combat's over, even if they get 3 back. See what I do. Yeah, I mean, another round of Palantirs, but I have excellent and productive uses for those Palantirs. The only unfortunate thing is I don't have a way to reposition those Nazgul. I haven't drawn any Nazgul Search, Nazgul Strike, Ringwraiths, Black Captain. Haven't drawn any of those, and so not rolling Sea Dice here is a little bit problematic. I feel like I'm way down. Yeah, I've only rolled 5 Sea Dice. It seemed like I was having a hard time moving my Nazgul around the board, and for sure I'm way down on Sea Dice. All right. And my opponent only gets 1 movement. This is a brutal game for free people. Now they're still going to have to give me a ring to get into Mordor. Now they know that I don't have Cool Weather anymore because I played it. But now that I know I'm getting a ring, I also know that I can move my Nazgul around. I miss. Attack Rivendell. Wow. So I'm not using Grond here. Probably out of fear of the Witch King dying. Likely just taking a swing to see how this goes. They play no quarter. Very reasonable. Get 2 hits. My opponent gets 4. Well, it's a good thing I didn't play Grond. Unfortunate. Yeah. All right, so it's now 2 HP to 2 HP. And I pull Half-Orcs and Goblin Men. That is very lucky. Because Hill Trolls cannot be used up in Rivendell because I don't have any Sauron regulars. Okay, I will go alone. Separate Boromir into Minas Tirith. Yeah, the Fellowship's super healthy. Why not? That gets you a point back, and the Fellowship is an effective. Now, what? They're at 1. That's 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, they're at effective -8. You don't need to keep additional companions in. Looking for these opportunities to separate companions when you can, especially when there's no red tiles in there in the pool yet, is a great way to buy free people to try to find ways to extend the game. Yep, I play Half-Orcs and Goblin Men. I bet I'm going to play Grond here, or maybe Fighting Urukai, and lead with Pits of Mordor. This is pretty risky, but I think I have to do it. Yep, I sure do. I think Fighting Urukai instead of Grond is probably correct here. Like, yes, Fighting Urukai is playable in Helm's Deep, but Grond is just wherever the Witch King is. Now, if I lose the Witch King here, this was a huge mistake. But, I mean, getting to roll 6 dice here and hitting on 5s and having 4 HP against 2 HP, especially because they can't play a card and they don't have any strategy cards left, it's not unreasonable. I mean, I could lose the Witch King here, but pretty high likelihood that I just instead, completely miss. My opponent only hits once. I draw. Yeah, I did expect at least one hit there. I mean, six dice to roll a 5 seems like it should happen, but oh, I go no card and just roll 2 6s. Man, that could have gone very differently. That was risky. Did I really feel like I was behind such that I needed to do that? Yeah, I guess I did. I mean, Lorien is takeable. Helm's Deep is takeable. Pelargir is right there. Did I really need to do that? I'm not sure I did. I guess in the game I felt like I did. Muster into Orthanc. Dwarves get mustered down. So dwarves going to war here is actually potentially problematic. That's a way that my opponent could definitely extend the game by retaking Dale. That's another good reason to spend fighting Uruk-hai. I now don't really care so much anymore about Saruman. I've played a New Powers Rising and I've played fighting Uruk-hai. Like, do I want Saruman to die? No. But is it a big deal at this point if he dies? Also, no. Yeah, I kind of like this. Now I'm really making it. I'm giving myself a lot of certainty that I take Helm's Deep, and then I'm sending that elite that I mustered a long time ago over to Dimrildale. Cool. Yeah, so there's my opponent's second move, which we knew was coming. I don't get a reveal. Sad, but not super. Where does Mary go? Did my opponent forget to put Mary out on the map? Interesting. So if they'd kept that H, they would have stopped me from doing. I expected it. I sort of expected I would take Edoras there, and just fully cover up, but I guess I feel like I don't need to. I have Lorien in pretty good shape, Helm's Deep dead to rights, and then Pelargir, and that's 10. Yeah, looking pretty good for Shadow here. The only challenge is I don't love these cards. Hill Trolls is really good for Helm's Deep. I guess King is Revealed is fine in Lorien because I have Reinforcement standing in Dimrildale. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Oh my. Oh, that's exactly what I said in chat too. My opponent has enough dice to theoretically dunk. They move and they get a -2. A good start, indeed. Okay, so this is smart. I take Edoras with this, and then I probably move from Dimrild. No, and I protect Dale. Nice. So I am protecting against a potential Dwarves to War easy retake of Dale. At the same time as I'm taking Edoras. I think that probably should have been a reinforcement from Dimrild Dale. But that's not an unreasonable. It's not an unreasonable thing to do. Also, like, I've definitely lost games where my opponent dunked in one turn in Mordor, so I'm probably wondering if that's going to happen. It is totally possible. There are still 5 non-revealing tiles left. It's not super probable, but it is certainly possible. Oh, and then they just get a reveal on the next move, which means they cannot dunk this turn. I attack Lorien. Yeah, makes sense. I can get 1 round of combat here, see how it goes, and then reinforce out of Dimrild Dale, bring in the mouth, and then I still have 2 attacks plus ground left. So that's probably enough to win. I play We Come to Kill here. Sure. I mean, it's better in Helm's Deep. But I guess I think that's my best cycle card. I probably should have played King is Revealed there. I think that would have been better. Okay, let's see what happens. I get 2 hits. Ugh, my opponent gets none back. Let's look at the statistic. Yeah, my opponent is -3 on hits. It feels like it's worse than that, but all right. So I roll post and get 0 hits. But I press and draw. And now I play Relentless Assault, knowing again. So my opponent went no card. I've got those reinforcements in Dimmerell Dale still if I need them, so I can afford to sack a bunch of guys here. Get 3 hits. That's pretty good. Opponent gets 3 back. So do I stop here? Yeah. Yeah. Especially because I want to. I have the attacks to spare. I probably want to be more sure about taking this using the armies from Dimmerell Dale. And I can always. Oh, and I also have Black Captain now. I don't know how I missed that. So I have Black Captain and Grand. That's pretty good. Yep, so I reinforce and then I cover up all of Rohan with that one little orc running around. Opponent draws a card. Yeah, they're fully aware that it's not looking good. So they're drawing some cards to try to defend, and I play Grand. Here, should I have saved Grand for? Sorry, brief pause to deal with my cat who has these amazing cries that she has been adjusting over the years to sound exactly like our children. It's very disconcerting. Cats are truly sociopathic creatures. Okay. Yeah, so I start with Grand. What was I saying? I feel like Grand was maybe better played here in Helm's Deep. Being able to bypass Ents in the first round is pretty good. I'm guessing I play Grand, and then do I just play my Great Host? That's probably what I do. No, I play no card. This is insane. What was I thinking? Why not cycle? Or just roll 3 6s? Sure. I guess I felt like I needed all of these Great Hosts and Onslaughts and everything for Helm's Deep. I do give myself 2 attacks this way. Because I can play Black Captain to go over there, to fly over. Attack, play Great Host, which I can guarantee triggers. And then use whatever I redraw into and then Onslaught, to finish it. It doesn't if I'd rolled a bunch of 1s there, it's not a guaranteed trigger on Great Host. Fortunately, I only roll 1. My opponent only gets 1 hit back. Yeah. So my Great Host triggers. Yep. I'm probably going to stop and draw. Yeah. That's a crippling card for me to pull because I have those 5 elites. My opponent moves just for the stats, and that should do it. Oh, they had Nameless Wood. Probably should have played that first round. But doesn't really. Maybe that's what they just drew. Okay, so I only get 1 hit. My opponent gets 3 back, but it still doesn't punch into my elite numbers. And so I still have 5 posts. I only get 1 hit, but they've got one left. I have 10 hit points and a Deadly Strife. Sure. All right. Yeah, I think pretty interesting. I think if my opponent had this is wild to go all the way back there, but I think if my opponent had not passed when I played Isildur and they had just moved with that Sea Dice, they get into Mordor a whole turn earlier, and I think they probably dunk this turn. And I would not have been able to win last turn. So I think those are the rippling consequences, actually, of that choice to pass. This game is so interesting how those tiny decisions can have such big impacts on the outcome of games. And as I'm saying in the chat, a lot of things needed to go my way there for that win. I guess I was time pressured up in Rivendell now that I see this, right? Like, I had just enough attacks to do this. Maybe I had 1 extra, but if my opponent had mustered into Edoras, I wouldn't have had 1 extra. With where we ended up. to win this turn. Yeah. And I do wonder if I should have just put Minas Tirith under siege earlier in the game and not. I feel like I got maybe a little tunnel vision with respect to Rivendell and felt pot committed to taking it. Because if I'd been able to put Minas Tirith under siege before Boromir was in there, when I had Denethor's Folly in hand, that's an easier take than a bunch of these other strongholds that I just beat my head against. Um, so maybe a slight inefficiency by me there. But yeah, ultimately, I think this game was decided by that Isildur pull being a reveal. Um, Crazy. All right. I'll be back in a couple days with the second game from this matchup, and then uh, we'll see if there's a game three or if I'm moving on to the round of 32. Thanks, everybody.